Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
Back in 2015, I met Emily in college. She was smart, funny, and we connected instantly. By 2019, we were pretty serious, and I genuinely believed she was the one I'd spend the rest of my life with. I worked tirelessly at my factory job, saving every penny to buy her an engagement ring. My plan was to propose on Christmas at her parents' house, a perfect moment surrounded by family, cozy and festive. Emily's family was an interesting mix. Her dad, Max, was chill, quiet, and respectful, a genuinely good guy. Her sister, Kimberly, was super sweet and always supportive. But then there was Amanda, Emily's mom. She couldn't stand me. No matter how much effort I put in, nothing I did was ever good enough for her. She'd make cutting remarks, saying Emily deserved better, or that I was just some guy with no ambition. Emily would brush it off, telling me, "That's just how my mom is." I didn't fully buy it, but I kept trying because I loved Emily and hoped Amanda would eventually come around. For Christmas that year, I went all out with gifts for her family. I got Kimberly a laptop for college since she'd been talking about how much she needed one, a nice barbecue grill for Max, and an expensive scarf for Amanda. Honestly, the scarf stretched my budget, but I thought it might soften her attitude toward me. Emily was supposed to join us later after her hospital shift, so I went ahead and handed out the gifts. Kimberly was overwhelmed and started crying when she saw the laptop. She hugged me, saying it was the nicest thing anyone had ever done for her. Max looked genuinely thrilled with the grill, and even Amanda managed a forced thank you for the scarf. For a moment, I thought things might finally be turning around. But then Kimberly started acting strangely. She kept glancing at me, her eyes flicking between me and Max, like she was wrestling with whether or not to say something. Eventually, Kimberly pulled me aside into her room. Max followed, looking confused. Kimberly was already tearing up as she said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't want to ruin this, but I can't keep it in anymore." I had no idea what she meant until she handed me a pregnancy test. I just stared at it, completely frozen. It felt like my brain had short-circuited. "It's Emily," she said. "I found it last month." Then came the bombshell. Kimberly revealed that Emily had been cheating on me since the beginning of the year, with a guy Amanda, her mom, had introduced her to. Kimberly said Emily begged her to keep it a secret because she was figuring things out. I couldn't even speak. My chest tightened. My hands were shaking and my vision blurred. Max placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "Son, I'm sorry. I understand if you need to leave." That snapped me out of it. I nodded, thanked Kimberly for telling me, and shook Max's hand. As I walked out of the room, I glanced at Amanda. She was sitting on the couch, sipping wine, completely unfazed. I didn't say anything to her. I didn't trust myself not to explode. The drive home was a blur. By the time I got back to my apartment, I was trembling, consumed by a mix of rage and heartbreak. I called my family and told them everything. My mom was furious, saying, "You're better off without her." My sisters were ready to go confront and even beat up Emily, but I told them to let it go. All I wanted was to move on. That night, around 11 p.m., Emily started blowing up my phone, sending text after text. "I can explain. Please, please, just let me talk to you." I didn't respond. The next morning, I changed my number, deleted my social media, and began erasing her from my life. It hurt like hell, but one thing was clear. I deserved better. After Christmas, I felt like I was in survival mode. Cutting Emily off wasn't just about ignoring her calls and texts. It was about protecting myself from everything she represented. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was humiliated, angry, and stuck replaying every moment of our relationship, trying to figure out how I had missed the signs. She tried everything to get in touch, calling from blocked numbers, sending emails, and even reaching out to my family. Every message was the same. "It's not what it looks like," or "You're misunderstanding everything." I didn't bother responding. What was there to misunderstand? She cheated, got pregnant, and lied about it. End of story. I spent a lot of time with my family in those first few weeks. My mom, being the nurturing force she is, made sure I was eating and sleeping. My sisters, on the other hand, were more direct, bluntly telling me things like, "Dude, she's trash. She doesn't deserve a second of your time." Their honesty helped a lot. They reminded me that I wasn't the problem. She was. To keep myself busy, I threw myself into work, picking up extra shifts at the factory, not just to distract myself, but to rebuild my savings. The money I'd spent on the ring was gone, but that didn't sting as much as losing the life I'd thought I was building with Emily. I realized I needed to focus on myself, so I started doing things I hadn't in a while. I joined a local basketball league, reconnected with friends, and even tried learning how to cook. Spoiler alert, I'm still terrible at it, but it's fun. Slowly but surely, I started to feel like I was healing. Then, in mid-2020, I got some unexpected news. A mutual friend texted me out of the blue, saying, "Hey, did you hear about Emily?" I debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the best of me. The friend told me that Emily's affair partner had ghosted her after finding out he was the father of her baby. Apparently, he wanted nothing to do with her or the child. Now, Emily was a single mom, trying to figure things out on her own. Honestly, I didn't feel much. A small part of me felt satisfied, like that's what you get, but mostly, I just felt indifferent. Her drama wasn't my problem anymore, and I was relieved to be out of the mess. A couple of months later, Emily somehow got my new number. She called, begging to talk. I don't know why I answered, but I regretted it immediately. She launched into a long apology, saying she'd made a mistake and wanted to explain. I let her talk for a bit before cutting her off. "Emily," I said, "I don't care anymore. Whatever you have to say won't change anything. We're done." That's when she switched tactics, trying to guilt-trip me. She said I owed her this and that I was being unfair by refusing to hear her out. I told her flat out, "I don't owe you anything. You made your choices. Now live with them." Then I hung up. Not long after, Amanda got involved. She sent me a string of texts, calling me a coward and saying I was running away from my responsibilities. I couldn't believe the audacity. Responsibilities? I wasn't the one who cheated. I wasn't the one who got someone else pregnant. I blocked Amanda's number too, but for a while, it felt like they were everywhere, trying to drag me back into their chaos. Every time they reached out, it only made my decision to cut them off feel more right. I didn't want their explanations. I didn't need closure. I just wanted to move on, and eventually, I did. The calls stopped. The texts stopped. My days started to feel lighter. For the first time in months, I felt like I had control over my life again. Then, Mother's Day came around, and I was looking forward to spending it with my mom and one of my sisters, Raven. My mom has always been the heart of our family, and after everything that had happened, I wanted to make the day special for her. We decided to grab lunch at Red Lobster, since seafood is her favorite. It was supposed to be a calm, drama-free day. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. We were finishing up and about to leave when I saw them. Amanda and Kimberly, of all people, in all places. They had to show up there. My stomach dropped. Kimberly looked like she wanted to melt into the floor when she saw me, but Amanda? She locked eyes with me and immediately wore that familiar look of disdain. I could feel Raven tensing up beside me. She's always been protective of me, and I knew she was ready to go off. Amanda's expression shifted the moment she noticed Raven. She looked confused, almost shocked, like she was piecing something together. That's when I realized she must have finally figured out that Raven was my sister, the same other woman she'd accused me of cheating with. The audacity of it all almost made me want to laugh. Raven muttered under her breath, "Do you want me to handle her?" I shook my head. The last thing I wanted was a public scene. My mom gave Amanda a cold, hard look before nudging me forward. "Let's just go," she said. But then Kimberly stepped forward, practically begging. "Please, can we talk? Just for a minute alone?" Raven wasn't having it. "Why would he want to talk to you?" she snapped. Kimberly looked genuinely upset, and my mom stepped in, suggesting that I hear her out, away from Amanda. I agreed more out of curiosity than anything else. Kimberly pulled me aside far enough that Amanda couldn't hear us. She immediately apologized for everything that had happened. "I'm so sorry for how things turned out," she said. "I miss having you around. You were like a brother to me." I didn't know how to respond, so I just nodded and let her continue. She told me that Emily had been miserable since I left, crying all the time and saying she regretted everything. "I'm sorry she's struggling," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "But that's not my problem anymore. She made her choices." Kimberly nodded, then told me something that made my stomach twist. "She destroyed the laptop you gave me," she said quietly. "It happened right after you left. She was mad at me for telling you the truth. That hurt. I had given her that laptop with genuine care, and Emily had ruined it out of spite. Before I left, there was something I'd been wondering since Christmas, so I finally asked Kimberly, 'Why does your mom hate me so much? What did I ever do to her?' Kimberly hesitated before admitting, 'She thought you were cheating. She saw you with another woman, Raven. She didn't know you were siblings.' My jaw dropped. All of this, the cheating, the pregnancy, the heartbreak, started because Amanda jumped to conclusions and convinced Emily that I was unfaithful. I couldn't help but laugh. It was so stupid, so unnecessary, and yet it ruined everything. Thanks for telling me, I said. And hey, the laptop's warranty is still good. You can probably get it fixed. Kimberly's face lit up, and for a moment, I saw the kind, shy girl I used to know. We hugged briefly, and I left to rejoin my mom and Raven. When I told them what Kimberly had said, Raven rolled her eyes. So Amanda's not just a jerk, she's also an idiot. Good to know. My mom sighed and said, Michael, you're better off without those people in your life. She was right. I'd spent so much time trying to make things work with Emily and her family, but it was clear now that they weren't worth the effort. A few days after running into Kimberly and Amanda at Red Lobster, Kimberly called me. She wanted help with the laptop warranty I'd mentioned, and since she had been one of the few decent people in that family, I agreed to meet her at a local electronics store. When I got there, Max was with her, which honestly was a nice surprise. Max had always been solid. Out of all the chaos, he had been the only one to offer me a genuine apology. On Christmas, we chatted while sorting out the laptop. Max thanked me again for the grill I gave him, saying how much he loved using it. Kimberly was quieter, but seemed relieved to have someone helping her out. It felt nice, almost normal. Afterward, Max suggested we grab lunch as a thank you, and I agreed, thinking it would be a good opportunity to catch up. We went to a small nearby restaurant, and for the first time in ages, I wasn't thinking about Emily or all the drama. Max talked about his plans to redo their backyard, and Kimberly mentioned how school was going, though it was clear she was still dealing with tension at home. It was a surprisingly good time. Then, just as we were finishing up, I heard someone call my name. I looked up and there she was, Emily. My heart sank. She looked rough, tired, and stressed, like she'd aged years since I last saw her. Part of me felt sorry for her, but the other part was just annoyed that she showed up and ruined what had been a peaceful afternoon. Hi, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She glanced at Max and Kimberly, then back at me. Can we talk? I stayed seated and crossed my arms. What do you want, Emily? She hesitated, then stepped closer. I just want to explain. Please. I've been trying to talk to you for months. I sighed. You've got 5 minutes. Go. She launched into an apology, saying she made a mistake and regretted everything. Then she said, My mom convinced me you were cheating. She said she saw you with another woman. I cut her off. You mean my sister? That's who Amanda saw. Raven is my sister, Emily. If you'd bothered to ask instead of jumping to conclusions, we wouldn't even be here right now. Emily's face fell. I didn't know. I thought she trailed off, looking completely lost. I should have talked to you, she said softly. I shook my head. No, you just cheated, I said flatly, for almost a year. Instead of trusting me, you lied, slept with someone else, and got pregnant. And now you expect me to care about your excuses? Her voice cracked as she said, I wasn't happy. I didn't know what to do. You could have talked to me, I snapped. You could have ended things if you weren't happy, but instead, you went behind my back. That's on you. Max and Kimberly sat there awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Emily started crying, which might have worked on me years ago, but not anymore. Please, she begged. I want to fix this. I'll do anything. I shook my head. There's nothing to fix, Emily. You destroyed everything. I've moved on, and so should you. That's when she dropped the real bomb. But my son, he needs a father. He needs stability. I blinked, stunned by her audacity. Your son is not my responsibility. That's for you and his actual father to figure out. Oh, wait. He ran off. Didn't he? Sounds like a pattern. Emily flinched but didn't argue. Instead, she looked at me with tear-filled eyes and said, Why are you being so mean? Mean? I repeated. Emily, I worked overtime to save for a ring because I thought we had a future together. I planned to buy a house and start a family with you, and you threw it all away. You don't get to call me mean for refusing to clean up your mess. She broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. Max finally stepped in, saying, Emily, I think it's time to go. You need to respect his boundaries. She turned to Kimberly, desperate for backup. Kimberly, you understand, don't you? You know I regret everything. Kimberly hesitated before responding. Emily, you're my sister, and I love you. But you made your choices. You can't expect him to just forget everything. Emily stared at Kimberly like she'd been betrayed, then stormed out of the restaurant. I sat there, stunned and exhausted, while Max apologized again. I'm sorry she showed up, he said. You've been through enough. It's not your fault, I replied. You and Kimberly have been decent through all of this. That's more than I can say for the rest of your family. After lunch, I went home and told my family what happened. My dad laughed and said, "Amanda probably thought kicking you out would solve her problems. Look how well that worked out for them." My mom just hugged me and said, "I'm proud of you for standing your ground. You deserve better." It became clear to me then that Emily's apologies didn't matter. I didn't need closure from her. I had already given myself that by walking away. After the confrontation, I thought I might feel something. Relief, satisfaction, maybe even a sense of finality. But honestly, it felt empty. Closure wasn't what I expected. It wasn't neat or clean, and it didn't magically fix everything. Instead, it just reminded me of how much damage had been done and how pointless it all was. A couple of days later, Kimberly sent me a text thanking me for hearing her out and helping with the laptop. She said, "I really miss having you around. You were like the brother I never had." That hit me harder than I thought it would. I replied, telling her I appreciated her honesty and that she didn't owe me an apology for Emily's mess. If anything, Kimberly had been the only one in that family who acted with integrity. Her message made me reflect on how much I'd lost, not just with Emily, but with the parts of her family I'd grown close to. Max had always treated me with respect, and Kimberly genuinely looked up to me. I hadn't realized how much I missed having people like them in my life until that lunch. But I also knew that staying in touch with them meant risking Emily finding ways to worm her way back into my life, and I wasn't willing to let that happen. A week later, a mutual acquaintance reached out to tell me more about Emily. Apparently, she was still trying to contact old friends of mine, hoping they would convince me to talk to her. She was struggling as a single mom, juggling work and raising her son alone after her affair partner completely ghosted her. I didn't feel vindicated hearing this. If anything, it just confirmed that walking away had been the right choice. Her life was her responsibility now, and I wanted no part in it. Then there was Amanda. I'd expected her to double down on her hatred for me, but surprisingly, she went quiet. I guess the confrontation at Red Lobster had left her with nothing else to say, or maybe she realized how much damage her lies had caused. Despite everything, one thing Emily said during the confrontation stuck with me. She claimed she only cheated because Amanda convinced her I was unfaithful. At first, I brushed it off as just another excuse, but the more I thought about it, the angrier I became. Amanda had been meddling in our relationship from the start, planting seeds of doubt and pushing Emily to find someone better. But while Amanda played her part, Emily wasn't innocent. She made the choice to cheat, to hide it, and to lie her way out when she got caught. In the end, it didn't matter who was more at fault. Both Amanda and Emily were toxic in their own ways, and I was better off without either of them. That night, I sat down with my family and told them everything. My dad chuckled and said, "Amanda was looking for any excuse to get rid of you. That woman was always full of it." Raven smirked and added, "And yet, you're the one who came out ahead. Emily's stuck raising a kid alone, and Amanda's probably tearing her hair out trying to fix things. Meanwhile, you've got a clean slate. That's a win." My mom, as always, was the voice of reason. She hugged me and said, "Michael, I'm proud of you for standing your ground. You didn't let them manipulate you, and that takes strength." I thought things were finally over with Emily and her family. I had moved on, found peace, and was focusing on myself. But of course, Amanda wasn't about to let things end quietly. A few weeks after the confrontation with Emily, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Michael, it's Amanda." Her sharp voice came through the line. I almost hung up right there, but curiosity got the better of me. What could she possibly want now? "What do you want, Amanda?" I said, already annoyed. "We need to talk," she snapped, as if she was doing me a favor by calling. "It's about Emily and the baby." I sighed. "There's nothing to talk about. I've made my position clear. Goodbye." "Wait," she barked before I could hang up. "I'm not asking you to get back with Emily. I just think you should take responsibility for your part in this mess." That definitely caught my attention. "My part?" I asked, incredulously. "What part is that, Amanda? I wasn't the one who cheated. I wasn't the one who lied. So please enlighten me." Amanda let out an exasperated sigh, as though I were the unreasonable one. "Emily is struggling. She's a single mother because of a misunderstanding that could have been avoided if you just explained things to me from the start." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you seriously blaming me for Emily's affair? You were the one who introduced her to the guy. You were the one who convinced her I was cheating. Don't put this on me." But Amanda ignored me entirely. "That baby needs a father, Michael. You were practically part of the family for years. It's time you stepped up and helped, if not for Emily, then for the child." I was stunned, unsure how to respond at first. When I finally found my voice, I said, Let me make this crystal clear. That baby is not mine. I owe you, Emily, and her kid absolutely nothing. And if you call me again, I'll block you just like I did before. Selfish boy, she hissed. Do you think you'll ever find someone better than Emily? She made a mistake, but she's still the best you'll ever do. You're throwing away a good woman over something so trivial. That was it. I laughed, a deep, belly laugh, because it was so ridiculous. Trivial? I repeated. Cheating for almost a year, lying about a pregnancy, and trying to manipulate me into staying. That's trivial to you? No wonder your family is such a mess. Before she could respond, I hung up and immediately blocked her number. I thought that would be the end of it, but of course, Amanda wasn't done. The next day, I got a call from Max. He sounded tired and stressed, which was unusual for him. Michael, I need to apologize in advance, he said. Amanda's been out of control. She's planning to come to your workplace. What? I asked, completely caught off guard. Why would she do that? She says you need to face her and take responsibility, Max explained. I've tried talking her out of it, but you know how she is. I groaned, already dreading the confrontation. Sure enough, later that afternoon, Amanda showed up at my job. She stormed into the office, demanding to see me. Thankfully, my manager intercepted her and asked what she wanted. I need to speak to Michael, Amanda said, loud enough for everyone to hear. It's a private family matter. I was in the back, but I could hear her clear as day. My manager came to get me, looking concerned. Do you know this woman? She asked. Unfortunately, yes, I replied. I'll handle it. When I walked out to meet Amanda, she immediately launched into her tirade. You've been ignoring me, and I won't stand for it, she said, glaring at me as if I were a misbehaving child. You're going to listen to what I have to say. No, I'm not, I replied calmly. You're on private property, and you're disrupting my workplace. Leave now, or I'll have security escort you out. That only seemed to make her angrier. You can't just ignore your responsibilities, Michael. I'll tell everyone here what kind of man you really are. I crossed my arms. Go ahead. Tell them how your daughter cheated on me, lied about her pregnancy, and tried to manipulate me. Let's see how much sympathy you get. Amanda's face turned bright red, and for a moment, I thought she might actually explode. You're a pathetic excuse for a man, she spat. I hope you end up alone because no decent woman will ever want you. Before I could respond, security arrived and escorted her out. My coworkers were clearly curious, but I just shrugged it off. Crazy ex's mom. Long story. They didn't press further. Later that night, I received a text from Kimberly. She apologized profusely for her mom's behavior and said Max was furious with Amanda for embarrassing their family. She's out of control, Kimberly wrote. Max is thinking about filing for divorce because of this. I told Kimberly it wasn't her fault and that I didn't blame Max for wanting out. Amanda had caused nothing but chaos, and honestly, I felt bad for him. The whole situation left me emotionally drained, but it also reinforced one thing. I'd made the right decision by cutting Emily and her family out of my life. They were toxic, entitled, and incapable of taking responsibility for their actions. I wasn't about to let them drag me down with them. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.